All right. We're live. Welcome back, everyone. J Bone here for Smash This Podcast. Let's talk some dark side of the ring, shall we? This is episode number 3. This is the first one that was revealed, though, to the public on, I believe, Viceland's YouTube page. That episode is up. Uh, if you want quick access to it, if you didn't watch it on cable or wherever you access Viceland, the Viceland channel. Um, so I actually watched this a few weeks ago, but I didn't want to review it until it aired on TV for the sake of, well, spoilers, I guess. Um, and plus this episode was pretty, how do I say, this episode was pretty heavy as far as um tragedy. It was emotional to watch. There was a lot of emotion in this one, by several different people. Family, friends, especially Tony Atlas. Um, um, Bruiser Brody is a name that I've heard a lot mentioned through the years, but never a ton revealed about him. He you hear about the greats in wrestling that are always referenced to. You always hear about Flair and Steamboat and Hogan and you know the, Harley Race. Uh, and Bruiser Brody's name, from what I've heard, is not brought up a lot. But after watching this, I feel like it should be. Um, Even if it is something that if he was more known for like the hardcore, crazy shit he used to do in the ring, so be it. But he still put butts in seats. People by the thousands came out to see this guy and what he would do to people or whoever his next victim was. Um, the the footage that they show paints a pretty brutal yet honest picture of what his character was. And it certainly makes me want to, learn more about him. Um, I feel like certain characters from today's wrestling are certainly inspired by him. I look at people like Bray Wyatt. We've seen little tributes to him done whenever like Daniel Bryan would put on the furry kick pads. That was a tribute to um Bruiser Brody. Or whenever someone would wear furry kick pads to the ring, it was usually a tribute to Bruiser Brody. Um or you could look at other larger figures like a Luke Harper, or maybe even see a little bit of the crazy in someone like Killer Cross or something like that, and see a little inspiration. I don't think Killer Cross has ever mentioned him, but I can, you see little things in different people, you know, um, or someone as new as Lars Sullivan, maybe. Um, yeah, I think there's a lot of different people within the last couple decades that can draw inspiration from Bruiser Brody. Um, and I've heard throughout the years little things about the cover up. Who knew what? Who was covering up what? But I never, till now, till this special, heard such a complete version of what happened. This really fascinated me because, like I said, you hear bits and pieces, but like I think Tony's story is very telling, and it's there's parts that are hard to watch in this because you see him reflecting on the stuff that he saw, and I can't even imagine being in the locker room or going to the hospital or going what he went through in that 24 to 48-hour period down there in Puerto Rico and contending with what he dealt with. Um, it the only part that was confusing about the whole thing, but it really didn't make that much a difference, was when Tony Atlas's story conflicted with um, Abdullah the Butcher, as in the next day, the meeting. Yeah, Abdullah the Butcher said there was no meeting. Tony Atlas said everyone gathered together and was talking about this. The only thing post after the murder was Abdullah the Butcher saying how he confronted Bruiser Brody's wife, about what had happened. I'm not sure why he wouldn't tell certain things. Obviously, you know, he was a part of it because he was there, but he wasn't a witness to it. So I'm sure part of him doesn't want to speak too much on it other than from what his history was with Bruiser Brody. So I get it, but I don't get it. You know what I mean? Um, and it was also interesting to hear Dutch Mantel's side of it. And and that's another guy that I didn't honestly know who he was until he showed up, a handful of years ago with Jack Swagger. And people started talking about his past. And I was like, who is this guy? So it was very interesting hearing his side of the story to all this as well, because he was close with that group and what all happened that day. Jackson Parker, what's up? Glad you could join. Um, and it was also interesting to hear the wife's, side of it, the son's side of it. Excuse me. Now, granted, this is 30 years later, and you can still see a ton of emotion. I think I think the most tragic part of all this is the justice side of it, because justice was never served, like Bruiser Brody's son said. Um, that Jose was his name, Jose Gonzalez. He was handcuffed and let go. It's just sad what happened with that. That justice was never served, and that in interviews that Carlos Colon was never brought to justice on this too, because you knew he knew what was going on. And that everyone down there completely covered this up. Okay, Jackson. Thanks for coming. It's okay. Thanks for stopping by. They show that RF interview with Carlos Colon, and he, he just doesn't say anything about it. When there's eyewitnesses saying he was sitting right there in the next room as this was all happening, and he knew this was happening. So that is still sitting out there, unfortunately, with this. It's messed up. And they show the quick clip of Carlos Colon accepting his acceptance speech in the Hall of Fame. And I'm like, and that just burns, It's like, I know people get upset over this, that, and the other thing about this guy's in the Hall of Fame and that guy's in the Hall of Fame. But man, you can't tell me that someone like Vince McMahon doesn't know about this and what happened. Producers did a tremendous job of putting this together. I saw later that NWA's what's his name, Bocephus, who fought for the championship within the last year, the NWA championship. He was playing the part of Bruiser Brody in the vignettes, the the cloudy reenactments. That was him. So that was that had to be quite an honor to do that. That's pretty cool. But there's another one who obviously draws from inspiration from Bruiser Brody right off the bat. There's an easy one. Bocephus does. But yeah, very well done. And it just to touch on Tony Atlas's part of the story, which has, I'd say, the most weight on this entire episode, besides the family stuff. Their involvement is also important too. I can't even imagine what it was like to be around 30 years ago and to be told that there's an accident and you have to go down to Puerto Rico to see your husband and then find out when you get there that he's dead. I mean, I can't even imagine. And it also seems really so shady that Carlos Colon's wife called up Bruiser Brody's wife as part of the cover up. Like, oh, you should come down. Like, something happened. It's like, really? And the emotion on the son's face after that. Man, crazy. There was a list I saw online on the next 3 or so. I think it's 3 more episodes of Dark Side of the Ring. Is it? I the one in the middle, I didn't recognize the name. Something Hernandez? Gino Hernandez? Is that his name? Something. Um, the next one is the Von Erich family tragedy. That I heard is very good from excuse me. Um Brian Alvarez, I believe, and Dave Meltzer were reviewing it, saying how good it was recently. Um, so they saw it ahead of time. But that's fine. Um, they gave a few details away, but nothing like nothing to the point of, oh, now I know everything and I don't have to see it. No, I still want to see it because I've heard stuff over the years, but I feel like with as good as this documentary series is, and in talking to Kevin Von Erich, one of the last Von Erichs, um, I feel, you know, this should still be good. Um, and so Von Erichs, Gino, no, Hernandez, I think that's his name, and then the Fabulous Moolah. That's going to be interesting because we've heard little things over the last couple of years, especially around the time of WrestleMania when they tried naming the women's battle royal. Um, and then fans protested, sponsors were going to pull out, and they took the name off of it, and they have not renamed it. So it'll be interesting to see what they talk about with Fabulous Moolah. Very curious. So, but bravo again. Great episode. Bruiser Brody. It certainly makes me want to find out more about him and see his history in the ring because even though they showed only so much, the crazy stuff they showed, the audience reaction, and his charisma was just outstanding. It was tremendous. Um, and I know there's one special that is on my list to go check out, and it's over on powerslam.tv. No, I've not forgotten about that. So I may check out that special, the Bruiser Brody special that's on powerslam.tv, and then review that on here as well. Um, because I'm really, I don't know, there's wrestling icons throughout history that just something strikes you and just draws you in. And watching this the first time and now tonight the second time watching this live, um yeah, I'm very inclined to see more of Bruiser Brody's stuff and learn about his history in the ring in the 70s and 80s. And in seeing, and what struck me as kind of funny is because that certain guys throughout that time went to several different territories and made a name for themselves, either if it was the NWA or the AWA or Mid South or or Japan or wherever. That this guy, as far as I know, was never in sight of the McMahon family. That kind of amazes me. But maybe he wasn't attracted to that because it was too crazy or something. But there was a lot of wrestlers that were like that back then. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear some opinions on that too, if I ever find them. Why he made it to some places and not others. You know? But it certainly sounds like from this story that aired tonight that he certainly was making a name for himself to the point that he was this close to taking over the Puerto Rican territory. But tragedy struck and they wouldn't let him. And it just seemed like too much real life was happening around wrestling for that to come to fruition. And it's sad. It's sad. So, well, we're going to wrap this up. I wanted to get on here at least tonight and review this because it was another very good episode. Tomorrow, I think we're going to do some Rebellion, Impact Wrestling Rebellion preview and predictions, and have some fun with that. And I'm, as it gets closer, I'm getting more and more excited, especially with the promo that Sami Callihan just cut today. That was pretty intense. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go on Twitter and go check that out. It has to do with Sami Callihan's request for the match coming this Sunday. So we'll talk about that on more and more tomorrow. And yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, folks, to smash that like button, smash that sub button, and ring that bell for notifications if you're digging the content so that you know when more of my stuff hits your screen. See you tomorrow, folks. Have a good one.